I bring messages from Jimmy and Pat Mead and Jerri Leesby, who Mo knows. I don't know.
About 5 to 7 minutes. I'm really ready for this. I'm ready. Okay. What's the name of the song? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So happy to be here tonight. It's like a little mini convention, and I sure wish you good luck in your future days. Thank you, Mo.
Hi, Mo.
Hi, Mo. How you doing? You're looking rough, buddy.
Okay.
Hi, Mo. God bless you. See, you betcha, man.
Say hi to Mo. Yeah. Hi, Mo.
Happy 51 years, Mo.
How about Charlie?
Yes. What's the charge, Marty?
Hey, Mo, you're supposed to come to San Diego and see me before you go to Florida. Congratulations on your retirement.
I don't call Mo, I call him Pops. He's been Pops for 20 years, so anyway, we'll have a good time tonight. And
I'd have to hear about your job, Marty.
Hi, Mo. Marty. That's all.
Really 4 reprobates.
Well, it could be a lot worse than that.
We're just here to see Mo.
Yeah, me too.
hope you enjoy this retirement. Now you get all your knuckleheads out of here.
Hi, Mo. How are you? Hey,
Oh, how are you?
wish you the best of luck, and someday I hope that you really turn out to be good looking.
Grow some hair. Quit getting them crew cuts.
Barney. Barney. Say hi to Mo. Say hi to Mo. Hi, Mo. Ray, say hi to Mo.
It really is.
No, it doesn't.
Any happy news about it?
I was here at 1 o'clock, at 12 o'clock there. But I couldn't come to the field because I didn't want you to know what it was.
Get in there, man.
This is your brother. You called me the other day. I had to bite my tongue.
Section 4 event. Choir section. Everybody else choir.
Were you aware of our nickname for you? Papa Smoot? Papa Smoot. Earhart. Yeah, let's get that thing over. Barney Earhart gave you that name.
Barney, yeah, right.
Barney Earhart.
I still have some of those.
The Alumni Association and all the participants here tonight finally got one on you. We have a few people here that I just want to take note that they're in our presence tonight before they leave the room. As I introduce you, you just might want to raise your hand so we can see where you're sitting and who you're sitting with. First of all, we're really privileged to have every one of you here tonight from about, I think it ended up being, Dan, maybe 10 or 12 states represented tonight. As far away as Boston and California. I think we even have somebody here from Wyoming, I believe. Who's from Wyoming? Kenny, how are you? Good to see you, buddy. First of all, I want to acknowledge, first and foremost, the young lady who has spent, I guess, 30 years May. Is it May 26th, Adelaide? May 26th of this year, she has spent her 30th year with this man.
Oh.
Moes' wife, Adelaide.
Blessing.
Also seated at the table with Mrs. Szynskie is, I understand, one of their daughters, Frances. Frances, you want to stand up? Oh, great son! I'm sorry. Will the real Frances stand up? I'm sorry, Frances. His daughter, Regina.
Stand up for
And his daughter, Murry. Also in attendance, I understand, is Moes' brothers, Gene and Don. Yes. Gene and Don? I also want to acknowledge a few other people in the audience very quickly. We have with us tonight, of course, the one and only choir director of Boys Town, Monsignor Francis P. Schmidt. Also here with us tonight is the former director of Boys Town, Father Monsignor Huff. And the newest addition to the Boys Town staff, Father Dunn. And all the way from Boston, Massachusetts, who made a special effort to be here. And I want to just make mention of this particular priest, because I was in Boston back in June on a business trip, and we were having dinner one night up there. And just out of the blue, he says to me, he said, you know Mozinski's retiring? And this was over lasagna, I think. And I said, no. He said, yeah, he's retiring in November. And I said, well, okay. Thank you for letting me know. That's Father DiPietro, all the way from Boston, Massachusetts. Of course, the one and only, the present director of Boys Town, Father Val Peter.
All right.
Well, before I introduce this next gentleman who will carry on with the program, I just want to let you know that if anything is done or said tonight that offends you or upsets you, Tom Finn made me do it. This next gentleman who will take over the program right now is a guy that I've been beginning to get to know more and more as I come out here to Boys Town conventions. And I called him about, what was it, back in July, I think it was, when I called you, and told him that I thought we ought to do something for our buddy Mo. And this gentleman says, what do you want, Robert? Whatever you need, whatever support you need out here in Omaha, we'll give it to you. So this whole evening would not have come together as it has so far, I should say, without this gentleman doing what he had to do to make it happen. I also want to recognize his wife, who was right there beside him during the whole 9 weeks of preparation for this event, including all the hotline conversations we had on the phone via South Carolina, Nebraska, and that's his wife, Lori. I'm going to turn the microphone over to a gentleman who I think you all know and respect, and one of our upcoming future alumni members, Dan Shields.
Thanks, Robert. I deserved not that much of thanks, but I'd like to keep things short tonight. And Mo, this wouldn't all be possible if it wasn't for you. I'd like to have a round of applause for Mo. I have a list of people to introduce tonight, so I want to keep it short, but I did receive a letter that I debated whether or not to read it, but sort of like some Inquirer type news that a gentleman from Woodstock, Virginia sent, Joseph Stranger, and I thought maybe it wouldn't be appropriate to read it, but I'm going to read it anyway, then get on with the program and introduce all the special people. It says, Mo, this is from Joseph Stranger. Mo and I had a fight my first day at Boys Town, 1943. He had a great deal to do with my staying 5 years and graduating. He did teach me pinochle, which did lead into choir, chess, and appreciation of classical music. I miss him very much in my day-to-day living. The best of Mo, Joe Stranger. And before I introduce the director of Boys Town, I'd like to thank a few people. Most of all, Robert Keeder, who dropped the seed in our minds, say, let's do something special for Mo. Robert, thank you very much.
There you go, Robert.
There's many people that I may not mention that I need to thank, and it's one big thank you from me. But there's several names that I would like to thank. Tom Finn, Donna Anderson, my wife Lori, and the family, friends, Boys Town alumni, and the Boys Town choir boys. Thanks, everybody.
There you go.
And as I said, I'd like to introduce the director of Boys Town, and I'd like to hold by his how can I put this?
5 minutes. Carefully.
Less than 5 minutes more. Every year at the awards night, Father Peter says, make it short. Father Peter?
Mo, words can't possibly tell you how much you have meant to so many people at Boys Town, so many boys and so many girls. I'm happy to see our girls here tonight. And you have taught our kids that singing is not only praising the Lord, it's not only praying twice, but it's also a way for all of us to find in our hearts something better than we have had before. So I finish with some words which you remember from an old musical. A bell is not a bell unless you ring it. A song is not a song unless you sing it. And love is not love unless you give it away. Thanks for giving it away, Mo. Thank you.
The next gentleman I'd like to introduce, all I can say about him is he graduated a year before I was born. Right? Travino.
Sure doesn't look it.
I'll try to keep this short. No pun intended, Bob. They asked me to say a few things and try something humorous about a few things I might know about Mo, and I'm not really anxious to do that because Mo was in the Army, and he was, I believe, discharged in 1952, which was a year after I arrived in Boys Town. And the first thing I found out about Mo was you don't get on his bad side. He denies ever having to use force to get things done a couple of times. But a classmate of mine named Charlie Elliott called me from San Francisco about a year ago, and we got to talking. As you alumni know, that we go on and on forever, and we talked about how he decided that if Mo ever got bad with him, he's going to put him away. And it wasn't a couple of days later,
and I found Charlie up with his butt up against the wall, and Moe saying, "Now listen, young man. If you ever seen Moe, I don't do impressions, but usually it was like this. Young man, that'll be just about enough." The only trouble with Charlie was, one thing I noticed is that his feet were about 18 inches off the floor. He'll deny that. We've often wondered. I've commented on how, as ugly as most of us Boys Town guys have been, we've really managed to come up with some pretty good-looking ladies. Not too bad. And Moe's name came up at a meeting one time, and I said, Moe, we're all ugly, and Moe's ugly too. I said, but all his children resemble him to some degree, but God, they're gorgeous. How did that happen? Of course, Pat Renner pointed out very quickly that Addie probably had a lot more than he directed us at Boys Town. It was real classical in those days to when on interviews for the jocks or whoever to say, well, I have a lot to thank Monsignor Wagner for and a lot to thank Skip Heiring for. And I may have said that once or twice myself, but I got to tell you, I don't think Monsignor Wagner, if he walked in the door, would know me from Adam. Because Moe was the guy that was there kicking my butt out of bed every morning. He was in the trenches doing the job. But I wrote some notes down. Let's see, it says, you don't talk about Superman's cape, you don't spit in the wind, you don't pull the mask off the Lone Ranger, don't mess with Moe. Adelaide, we were taught at Boys Town that Father Schmidt taught us that we put a lot of faith in the Blessed Virgin Mary and did novenas to get special favors, and I think that's had a lot to do with it, get such good-looking women. But Moe must have been spending double time in the church to find Adelaide. Moe, I could go on and on forever, and I just love to. Matter of fact, I wrote notes because, as most of you know, from an extemporaneous situation, I'll go on forever. So I limited myself to the notes. The only thing I want to say is thanks for who you are and what you've been, and I don't know how to describe that without making a fool of myself. But fine. The big brother I never had, thanks, Moe.
Thank you, Mike. Well, I received another letter for some people who couldn't be here, and they asked me to say hi for you. And I keep looking at this. It says, "Dear Moe, God bless you, and always remember you cannot take the boy out of Boys Town. Love always, Dean Albert, 61, Gene Albert, 62, Don Albert, 64, and Roy Albert, 66. A hi from the Albert brothers." Now, of course, Robert left the room, and he has a different program than I do, so I'm winging it up here. The next person I'd like to introduce is Pat Render. And Pat, I appreciate for the help that you did on this event today. Pat Render.
When I got to Boys Town, my two older brothers were down in the high school. My brother Rich and I come into that orientation. I was only 9. At that time, I think they had this voice test down to where they were doing it pretty regular. My two older ones, the brothers, I don't think ever got a voice test. But they tested my brother Rich, who was 2 years ahead of me in school, and decided he was going to go, and then they had to give me a voice test because I was only 9. They didn't want me in third building. So they brought me back over, they brought me over afterwards, and Mo wasn't there. I think George Aarons did it and Billy Williams. That's how I got into the third building. I was the youngest one there. The youngest one in third building. Spent 5 years there. All the time that I was there, Mo was, besides the head counselor, he was the chancel choir director for us. And I think Mo, a number of those years, have running back and forth to Lincoln, going to school down at the University of Nebraska. Kind of 3 jobs and half pay, I suppose. I remember one of those days, I got tied up with a couple of guys who were, I think we'd broken into that Sister Grace's clothing room upstairs on the 3rd floor. Mote, I think Ives Mote was one. He was the little guy that could go up over the roof and into the window. And I think we had done this a couple of times, and we finally decided that we were about caught. And we went and confessed to Mo, and Mo says, "Well, you figure I was about ready to catch you, so you come and confess." And I said, yeah. It's been a lot of years that I've known you, Mo, and my family and my brother Rich went on tour with you for a couple of years. I was just talking with him just earlier this week when he was in town with my brother Ed. And he was telling me that there are a few people that you think back on and would make a difference in your life over the years, in your formative years. And he said, you know, Mo Szynskie and Jim Keenan are 2 of them. Mo, we're glad you're still here, and thanks for good years.
Thank you, Pat, and Mo, thank you. Some people say Boys Town changes. I think I received the same voice test you did, Pat. At this time, I'd like to introduce a gentleman from Washington who, over the past several years, I've got to know personally, and a real special guy, Bill Shepard.
Mo, I understand we're to reverse our roles. You're to come up here, please. Please. Would you come forward, please?
Take a voice test.
There's several things I remember, Mo. I first got here in 1942, Father Schmidt, getting the singing firework there. Tom Finn, of course. Charlie Mitchell running the single wing under Corky, and you. That you I still remember, and remember you with great affection. You know? Would you open it and show us what you got? Except he doesn't read Japanese. The translation's on the back of everything. Perhaps you just read it. Says, Mo, as you head south, that's what the card says, heading south, for retirement. Take with you the symbols of strength and patience. These are virtues you possess. I prefer to give you some of me to what I could have gotten from a store. Be happy, be content. Best regards, Bill Shepard. It didn't have a good strap on my briefcase anyway. You can't tear stuff, so aging.
How old aging?
2 years older.
Hey, Bill, turn around.
Bill, turn around.
There you go.
Sure. Oh, that's what it is.
Bill, thank you. May I suggest, Mo, that the next time you come up, if someone gives you a little gift to open, bring Adelaide with you to help you cut down on time. This next gentleman I'd like to introduce, and truly he's a gentleman. It's a pleasure because he was the mayor of Boys Town when I was at Boys Town. He graduated in the same class as I did. And he also carried the second tenor section, which I was a second tenor. And I used to say to this individual, with your voice and my looks, we're going places.
Charlie Manger.
My wife's not here, so I can say that. Well, occasionally I was the first tenor, but I had to cross my legs. I want to try to keep this real short. I was supposed to think of some humorous little anecdotes about Mo. First one was, believe it or not, well, everybody took a voice test back then. And that first week of going to orientation, I remember coming in and having to sing Silent Night. I was 7 years old. And my father had died recently, and I didn't know the words. And so I got in there, and my brother sang, and I came in and sang about 3 notes. And Mo said, okay, that's enough. He said, we have a rule here, we keep brothers together. Thank goodness your brothers can sing. So later on, eventually he taught me a few things, but I was in what was called, someone mentioned chancel choir. I actually was somewhat below that. I was in what was called Walton Smola's choir. Basically what that was once or twice a year, Mr. Smola would tie one on, and he basically would say, okay, bring my choir together, and we'd go out by his car, and he'd stand on the hood, and we'd sing. And we sang really well, too. The other little anecdote was, I don't know how many people toured with the choir. Can you raise your hand? Okay, some of you won't get this story, but those that did, let me explain. We used to have to check off music. And when you would go to Okoboji, and I used to enjoy Okoboji before I got in the choir. Then I go to Okoboji and have to study music 8 hours a day. And what we would do is we'd do that, and then we'd come back to the home, and we'd go on music hall and study, and we'd have to check off all the songs, because back then you couldn't take the music with you. And so Mo would have everybody, and if you've been in the music hall, everybody knows where the choir room is. Right beside the piano, there was a place where no one sat. That was where the tea was and guests. And you only sat there when you were checking off music, and you'd all line up. And you'd come before Mo, and you'd sing your song from memory. And you'd have to know when you were supposed to come in and such. And we'd all sit there, and Mo would be sitting at the piano, and you'd sing your song, and you'd get most of the way through, and you'd maybe make one mistake, and Mo would hold up the music very elegantly and go, I don't think so, and drop it. And I'm telling you what, my first tour, I was scared that I wasn't going to make choir, because I could not memorize any music. The other thing I remember about Mo, and he won't remember this, and first of all, Mike, you talked about Mo being a brother. He was a bit more than that to me, and I can't speak for my brother Bill, although I will. Mo was more than that to us. He was a father to us, and I remember something. Every year I went on 6 tours, and most of the time I was just a T-boy though, but I went on a tour, and I can remember Mo. Every year I'd say, that's it, I'm never going on this damn tour again. I hate the choir. And every year he'd go, yeah, right. And one year I really got upset at Okoboji, and he pulled me in his room and he said, I'm going to tell you one thing. I hope that my son turns out to be the young man that you are. Francis has done much better than that. But I will say, I hope that I can be half the parent that Mo was to my children, to what he was to me. I love you, Mo.
Charlie, thank you. And I mentioned that Charlie carried me in the second tenor, but I helped him carry the costumes when we unloaded the bus every day. Before. You mentioned checking off music. At this time, I'd like to recognize an individual who, when I called him and said that we needed a piece of music, he mentioned, well, you know, I have a piece of probably every music, at least one piece of every music out of Boys Town. And my response was, Marty, that doesn't surprise me. He's filming this tonight to give to the Szynskie family. Marty Critchley. The next individual I'd like to introduce was a first tenor, and he also went on the choir tour to keep us guys in line. When we're supposed to be sleeping, he'd come in and tiptoe in and make sure we're all snoring. Well, Reggie, we had that snoring down to an art. Reggie Walton.
Yes, it is true that you have the snoring down as an art form, but I used to feel that television. If the television was warm, then I knew your bottoms were warm. But anyway, I'm going to tell a little short story. When I was asked to come up here and speak and make funny about Mo, well, first of all, I'm not a funny person. And so what I thought I would do is just talk a little bit about Mo, and that is, those of you who have ever sat in the choir room, this is what you have to do for me for just a moment. I need you to close your eyes and visualize this. We're all sitting here. This individual walks up and sits on the stool, looks back at the accompanist, he raises his right hand, and he drops it. There's no action. Ooh. You talk about a gentleman that like goes off the deep end, that was Mo. So, but also along with that, he would stand up, and as much affection as I had for this man, I have to tell you, as a tailor, I'm a tailor by trade, he was the most disheveled person I'd ever seen. I mean, I love this man because when I was in St. Louis, I ran the streets. I had no conscience. I had no morals, no principles. When I came here, he slapped me once, I straightened up. But I always would look at this man and say, dear Lord, you know, please help this man. So, now, I'm going to give you a little visual something, okay? And then I'm going to explain it. First of all, you need to take a notice of my pants.
When you wear pants, gentlemen, they're to be worn at the navel. When you wear them at the navel, the length is correct as you see here. And they fit in the seat here. Now, here is Mr. Szynskie.
So, as he was directing and we were snickering and he never knew why, it's because his pants always looked like they were a pamper with a load in them. I mean, this is the man that I truly love. I'm not going to talk about those plaid jackets he wore to church on Sunday. I'm not going to talk about those polyester wide belt pants. I'm just not going to do that because I love him too much. But I'm so glad to see that this evening that he is properly attired. And I'm sure that that is only because of Adelaide. But on a more serious note, this is an individual who had a great effect on my life. He, things changed. Excuse me. To me, he was affectionately called Pops. And that's because we did about 9 tours together. I had the privilege of not only being a student here going on tour, but also they called me back for some reason and said, come and sing first tenor. We don't have any. And we need another counselor. So I did that. But this is an individual who really made a difference in my life. And Mo, I love you very much. You are as close as an individual that ever there was to me as a father. And I love you.
Reggie, I'd like to thank you for going on tour. With the utmost respect, and I'm taking bets that he doesn't get by with what he said about Mo tonight. Retired or not retired? The next person I'd like to introduce was the director of Boys Town when I was at Boys Town. I came to Boys Town in 1975 and graduated in 1978. Monsignor Hupp.
Mo, from deep in the Hall of History, where I am with the other relics of the home, comes a very sincere note of gratitude to you for a couple of reasons. First of all, for never giving me a voice test And secondly, for taking care of a whole section of the home while I was there. We were in charge, and I knew it, and everybody else knew it, the choir group, and I appreciate that. That was one group that I never had to worry about. It's against my principles to go out on a Saturday night, but I decided that tonight I would break that rule. And the reason I have that rule is because it takes me a lot longer to rest up than it does to get tired. And I've got a lot of resting to do here these days, especially resting up for tomorrow. So a very sincere thank you for everything you've done for me, which is an awful lot, even right up to this latest time. I really appreciate it, and I want you to know it. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Huff. Father Huff, you mentioned you didn't have to worry because you knew Mo was in charge. Now, I'm a kid from New Jersey, and there's something that all the choir guys told me. I don't know if it's true or not, but I was probably the same guy who went for the key to the flagpole and the baseboard stretcher. But, Mo, I'm going to ask you this question. I remember Danny Herrera and Paul Oski and Ed Flanagan used to tell me, notice the bumps on Mo's arms. He had so many muscles, they had to cut some out. I stayed in line. This next gentleman I'd like to introduce, I had an opportunity to talk to him last night and get to know him a little bit. And I'm really happy to be able to do that and meet so many people. Adelaide called me and said, Dan, you're doing such a good job. I said, Adelaide, this is not a job. When you're having fun like this, it's just super. Charlie Powell.
This is not as long as it seems to be. There was a song that was sung and written by Darren Manilow. I think you may have heard. This one's for you, wherever you are. Mo, this is a tribute to you, my tribute to you. A man called Mo. A tribute to Frank Mo Szynskie, class of 1947, Father Flanagan's Boys Home, Boys Town, Nebraska, retiring director of the Boys Town National Alumni Association. For just a moment, we are going to take a trip down memory lane. Lest we forget the days of yesteryear, when a man named Flanagan walked the streets of Boys Town. Boys Town. Before the colleges had addresses, before the streets had names, when Third Building was the center of life for the choir boys. My first experience with Mo was in 1946. At the time, I was a member of the Baltimore Boys Choir, and we went en masse to see and hear the world-famous Boys Town Choir. Of course, I didn't know Mo then, nor did I have an inkling that in a little over a year, I would be a part of this world-famous organization. During my early adjustment period, among us little guys, he was Szynskie. Mo, no, we didn't dare call him Mo. That would have been an assumption. Here comes Szynskie. We weren't necessarily afraid of him, more like in complete awe of him. We just knew what would happen if we should happen to attract Mo's attention negatively. Lest we forget, an hour on the Shiner. 5 squats. The unforgettable taste of the cigarette you swallowed when a commissioner hove into view. or the feel of a cigarette in the palm of your hand if you were unlucky enough to get caught. Mo, do you remember hiking over to the Happy Hollow golf course on weekends? Do maybe an 18-hole double. I was 4'11" and 75 pounds. The golf bag was bigger than me. And then hiking back to the home, stopping perhaps to plunder an apple orchard on the way. Speaking of apples, Mo, did you ever wait until after lights out, taking your pillowcase with other intrepid souls and raiding some unsuspecting farmer's apple orchard? Of course you didn't do things like that. Those nasty green apples really weren't worth the trouble that you could get into. Or the 10-mile Inn. Always after lights out. The ice cream, the sodas, the whatevers. Mo, you have been the personification of what is needed by the Alumni Association in a director. A strong melding, a blending of the old with the new. Mo has, along with a few others among us, observed the transition from the old Boys Town to the new. Mo has brought to the directorship a sensitivity, a caring for Boys Town. President Harry Truman had his mighty Mo, the USS Missouri, 888 feet of steel hull. I served aboard her after I graduated from Boys Town. Well, Boys Town has its own mighty Mo. No, he's not 800 feet tall. He's more like 5'9" and maybe 175 pounds. But the role model shadow that he casts extends back over the years, back to the days when the Boys Town Choir was billed as the rough and ready kids from Boys Town who sing like angels, the singing ambassadors from Boys Town. Mo, we love you, and tonight we honor you, Boys Town's own man called Mo.
Charlie, thank you very much. The next individual I'd like to introduce is a person that Moes looked up to all his life. There's words I can't say, I couldn't say about this individual, and that's Father Schmidt. Father Schmidt.
I don't have all that much to say, but people tell me they have trouble understanding me, and I want to be sure that you hear what I say. First of all, the thing about Dan Shields, who I never knew as a boy, but seems to me to be a very fine young fellow, and I asked him tonight whether his people might have been from this area, because Father Flanagan's longtime secretary, dear old Kate Danny, her maiden name was Catherine Shields. Anyway, when Dave Keeder called me quite a Bob called me quite a long time ago about this thing, and he wanted me to do something, I said, Bob, the greatest thing about this whole affair is that F.P. Schmidt has nothing to do with it. And I mean that sincerely. This was the alumni initiative. And I think that there is very often a misunderstanding about my particular relationship with Mo, which goes back a long way. I'll get into it in a moment. I think people think that probably the relationship was from me to Mo, that it was my favor to Mo. The exact opposite is true. Through all the long years, the favor and the blessing has been from Mo to me. From the evening of January the 21st, 1942, I remember the time not on account of Mo so much, but because that was the first night I was in Boys Town. Father Flanagan took me to the chapel, and he said, now dear, you go in and hear confessions. They don't like to go to me. You can hear a lot of stories about that. But anyway, I stumbled upon this little towel-headed kid laughing uproariously because he had lost his shoe in the clover patch up near the old post office. And this turned out to be Mo. So I'm glad that Bob Keeder left this an alumni thing. He did something else that I thought was awfully nice, and I have said nothing about this until tonight. He and the group who organized it said that they thought today would be a nice day because tomorrow is Mo's Names Day, the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. And this gives me an out to tell my roast story, which Mo is sick and tired of hearing. So anyway, everybody knows, I guess, that the moniker Mo was given to this guy by Father Warren Anderson, who somehow equated him with one of the Three Stooges. On account of the mop head, you know. As a matter of fact, they called Mo Mophead. But when I first knew Mo, his name was Darwin. And his nickname was Duke. Because for a little guy, he was indeed handy with his dukes. As people of the stripe of Laverne Bush, this Joe Stranger they talked about, Jake Williams can tell you. So anyway, Mo was about to be baptized one beautiful Holy Saturday. He wanted to know if I would come over, and I said, sure. Father Flanagan was going to baptize him. And so we're standing out in front of the church, and I said, Mo, what are you going to take for a name? And he said, what do you mean? I got to change my name? And I said, if you think that Flanagan's going to baptize you, Darwin. You got another thing coming. So he said, well, what'll I take? I said, well, I think Francis is kind of a thing. So there have been generations and generations of Francis. There's nothing I can say more than that. I hope that this relationship will continue, but I assure you that every word any of these kids have said is more than earned. I could not have done whatever I did without Mo, without other people, without Jim Keenan, without Walt Smolin, without a lot of them. But it's been one of God's enrichments, one of his great blessings, for which I will be eternally grateful.
We got the midget again here for a minute. I do truly want to thank Dan and Lori Shields for their fine work that they did tonight. I think they deserve another hand. I also want to recognize Big Mama from the auxiliary, Miss Pat Kuhn. She was really helpful in getting all you here tonight. And thank all of you who gave your testimony tonight on behalf of our brother Mo Szynskie. You guys did you ladies and gentlemen did a grand job, and I think Mo will have a lot to think about on his rocking chair down in Florida with his wife Adelaide. Fred, you want to give something to Mo real quick right there?
Okay. Just from a couple of the alumni from Region 7 that couldn't make it. And again, we're all unique. God's testament to each one of us that has been up there ahead of us. I'm glad I got up there. I did get up there because it said, keep it short. Well, I thought that was my middle name on my Anyway, well, from those, again, from God's uniqueness that couldn't come with you, thank you again. So it's a little something
Francis, the son of Frank, you all right now? I don't want to see you out in the parking lot later on. In case you do, I got Bill Bagley there with me. Right. I got a couple of other people I want to call up real quick that have a couple of presentations to make. First is Rita Berthelsen. She's the National Auxiliary President. Rita, will you come up here and make your presentation on behalf of the hundreds of women who are auxiliary members of our alumni association?
Recollections of Mo and Adelaide was working as their babysitter while Mo went to direct chancel choir at 10:30 Sunday masses. We grew up with Mo and Adelaide as neighbors and then good friends of the family. And when Monsignor Schmidt directed concert choir at my wedding to Leonard in 1972, we have Mo singing on our tape. But tonight I'm here on behalf of the National Auxiliary. And it has been fun, Mo, working with you for the last year and a half. You've been a big help to me. In the past, on behalf of all the auxiliary, you've been there when we needed you. You've helped us when we've asked, and we knew we could count on you. I have a small gift.
At this time, I'd like to call on a big man who happens to hold the office of President of the Alumni Association. Where's the big man? Bill Bagley.
Since I didn't get it, I want to make sure I got
I think first of all, as you look around the room, and you've heard already the distances people have traveled to be a part of this evening, that says so much without ever saying a word of the love and the compassion we have for Mo. I'm just an old dumb Marine. I don't have a tremendous vocabulary like a lot of the folks before me. But I want to pass on to Mo and to his lovely wife, Mrs. Mo, as we teased her over the years. For you that do not know or may not have realized, I understand you just celebrated your 30th anniversary. Is that correct? One of the things that I admire most about Mo, and my little brother Charlie, well, the only thing little on him is his hairline anymore, alluded to it. He, for us, has been the father we lost so many years ago. But more importantly, he's been the role model that we aspire to be. Not only in the loyalty that he shows to the home and to his brothers and sisters here tonight and all the numerous ones that weren't not able to make it, but the role that he plays as a father and devoted husband is something that's unfortunately not enough people take and play that role through. And me personally, again, as Charlie stole my line, I can only aspire and hope that I can be the parent and the husband that Mo has demonstrated through his leadership by example. That's what impresses me most about Mo. When I think of Boys Town, I think of Mo. When I think of Boys Town, I think of Father Schmidt. That, to me, strictly on a personal level, and I imagine a lot of other folks here, because I see a lot of heads nodding. For that, Mo, we thank you. We thank you with all our hearts. And it's a privilege for us to be able to share this evening with you. A few short, gee, we wish you could have been there, but please pass on our praise from Jimmy Means from Fairfield, California, from Patrick Means from Tucson, Arizona, from Jerri Leesburg of Antioch, California, and those messages were brought to us tonight by Dave Alexander. I have a letter also that I'd like to read, and again, it kind of sums up everything that we've tried to pass on. Dear Mo, just received the summer issue of the BT Alumni Newsletter, courtesy of Father Schmidt. I was utterly delighted reading about you being given the well-deserved Distinguished Alumnus Award. Congratulations. It seems incredible that with the perspective of some 40 years, I too am moved by the memories that Boys Town meant in my life. You are a very essential part of it. Wishing God blessings on your years of retirement. Signed, George Zemler, former counselor and accompanist at BT. My final mission tonight is to present to you a little token of our appreciation and the impact that you've had in our lives. And this comes to you from a number of friends, a number of fellow employees. It comes from that circle, not necessarily from the alumni board. And we want to make that perfectly clear, because when the call went out that we're going to have this function, the phones, and they're still ringing off the hook for people that wanted to make sure that they were a part of it. And for those that weren't able to be physically here, they sent messages, and hopefully the contents of this envelope will just, it's a small token of our appreciation, and there's nothing we can do to demonstrate our love and affection and loyalty to you and those things that you've demonstrated to us towards the home and other people. And I'll even bring it to you. brother gets to the piece of chicken, I want to make sure I collect it.
Before we close the evening, I just wanted to thank each and every one of you that took the time and the energy to come and spend this evening with us tonight here at the New Tower Inn. I really appreciate the response that was so overwhelming over the last 6 and 7 weeks. I've spoke to a lot of you on the phone. I spoke to a lot of people who could not be here tonight, some of which you've heard from Bill Bagley here tonight. And thank you for making this evening, I hope, Mo, a very successful and a very memorable evening in your 60-some years on this earth. I want to close by reading something from a song that was written some 30 years ago by a well-known artist and performer by the name of Paul Anka. The song was recorded by 2 famous artists, Elvis Presley and Frank Sinatra. I took the liberty to make some minor changes to the words of the song, but I'm just going to call it His Way. And now the end is near, and so Mo faces his final curtain at Boys Town. My friends, I'll say it clear, I'll state his case, of which I'm certain. He lived a life that's full, he's traveled each and every highway, and much more than this, he did it his way. Regrets, he had a few, but then again, too few to mention. He did what he had to do and saw it through without exemption. He planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and much more than this, he did it his way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure Adelaide knew, when Mo bit off more than he could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, he ate it up and he spit it out. He faced it all and stood tall and did it his way. He loved, he's laughed and cried with his family. He had his fill, his share of losing. And now, as tears subside, I find it all so amusing. To think he did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way. Oh no, not Mo. He did it his way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, he has not. To say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows he took the blows and did it his way. Fellow alumni, family, and friends, I really must say that our good friend and brother, Mo Szynskie, truly did it his way. And thank you, Mo. Dan Shields, will you come up here for a minute? Mo, now we're going to do something our way for a change.
I don't know if I'm doing it my way. My wife was just sending me for a knife. If that's okay. Okay if I'm up here? Smart man.
Ben.
Mo Szynskie, this is your life. Boys Town, USA.
Wow.
January 2nd, 1941, November 1st, 1992.
Well, I, of course, can't say much. I want sections, tenors over here, basses over there, sopranos over there, altos over here. And we should, this rehearsal shouldn't take more than about an hour and 35 minutes. and very grateful, as you certainly can see. There's not a great deal that I can say that I love each and every one of you. And of course, there are some very special people in my life, and there always is in everyone's life. To all of you, thanks a million, and pleasant journey to all of you.
Well, you have one more chore ahead of you tonight. Will the choir come up on the stage? Oh, you got one more choir to direct. Yeah. The alumni choir, please come on stage.
Somebody give him, yeah. Hey, Moes. This won't work. Now we're getting there. I get a school. Piano. Who's got the piano? I was directed to sing.
Okay. Pretend you and me lost our sick cases.
Hi, Mo.
Yeah, congratulations, Mo.
The very best, Mo. 30 more if Adley
One of my brothers, I don't know, might have been me.
Let's see, you pat on.
I heard about that. Well, a lot of people don't just goes to show you it's a short life.
That's right.
I just
Oh, After me.